So thank you for coming this evening. I'm excited to share our work with you in the project. I thought what I would do is first just tell you what we're trying to do, a little bit about who we are and the work that we do, and then how this program could work and what the benefits are, what it means, and then as the expert said, we're happy to hopefully answer all your questions. And I'm also very excited when I meet my colleague, Daniel Wescott, for coming in throughout the process. We've actually communicated with him. And yes?
You need to speak up louder, please.
Speak up, please.
We've worked with Danny and others who run similar programs in other states in order to get advice from them. So thanks for coming. Our purpose of this proposal is to expand the areas of training that are already offered at the Roseville County Sheriff's Office training facility. They currently do a range of training programs and bring in people, not just their own deputies, but from the state and the nation as well. And so in putting together this project, it seemed like a good opportunity to build on what was already there. The types of research, training, and things that we're actually talking about is pretty broad. If you're talking about forensic anthropology or forensics, you're always talking about a lot of different sciences and something that's pretty broad and multidisciplinary. So what we're looking at here involves things like remote sensing, geology and physics are involved, time since death estimation, that's usually what gets the most attention, but it's only one of many things. Simulated mock crime scenes, that's most important for training. Burial detection and excavation, that might include using remote sensing, but also excavation. And some of the research that goes with that that's really important and that we're most excited about has to do with things like trace evidence and how that preserves over time. So are there residues, are there fibers, how does that look over a period of time, and what can we get off of that? Entomology, chemical isotope analysis, that's a huge area that we're using now in all of our long-term missing persons cases to help with communication. And then, of course, human skeletal variation. So one of the things that ultimately happens with remains that are donated is they're out there for a period of time, less than a year typically, maybe quite a bit less. And then, they're ultimately accessioned into a permanent donated collection housed at the University of South Florida. And the reason that that's really important is that when we try to identify unknown persons, we use the skeleton, their bones, and it tells us a lot about who you are from a biological perspective, age, and health, and stature, and ancestry. So those methods only get better when we have modern people and a lot of variation to study. And that's why a similar facility like this around the country usually get attention because that time since death work. But what's really vital is that skeletal collection that students and researchers also from around the world can come and use to improve our methods. And why is that so important? Because ultimately improving those methods helps solve these long-term open cases. And that's what the big picture of this is really about. Missing persons, how we identify them, and ultimately return them to their families. And what I think is really the most rewarding and truthful thing is that it's a tremendous gift to be able to give these remains back to a family. And once you meet them, it's hard to not be committed to them. We've actually done similar work to this in Tampa since 2006. We used the backwoods of Mosey and also at Tampa City Park, a couple miles from the university, and used large animal models. And that was not for research, because that's not really conducive to the type of research we do, but it's for training. And we brought our students out every year and also law enforcement workshops, and it was a very successful program. Through that, and sort of all those things I mentioned that we do our research on, ultimately we put together a proposal which was accepted by the university and also the Florida Board of Governors for a new institute at USF. And its sole purpose is forensic anthropology and applied science dedicated to the problem of missing and exploited persons. So we're very excited about that, and it really gives us this way to increase the capacity that we have to to not only train our students better, but hopefully solve more of these cases. How big of a problem is it? It's hard to say. No consumers actually track how many cold cases there are. We know within the Tampa Bay area there's over 500. That includes Pinellas and Pasco County as well, Thunder and Hernando. And we have about 80 unknown, unidentified persons. So these are the ones we're always working on. However, we get cases from around the state and around the country as well. All those services, I mentioned most of them, in terms of the goals of this research site, are the types of services that we currently provide to medical examiners and law enforcement throughout the state. And that's always centered around burial excavation, missing persons, and whether it's reconstructing faces or facial reconstructions or putting together that biological profile. That's the point of the work. Lots of success cases. These are archetypical, really local examples, but just know that some of them are 30, 45 years old. Some of our older cases, this is not part of our cold case project, but the Dozier Reform School project. We work with those families and have 5 identifications. The first 2 were 17 and 8 years old. And I would just point out with that, we use ground penetrating radar, which is one type of remote sensing. It works really well, but it's one tool. And there's many other types of tools like that. So one of the big objectives and initial things we hope to do is bring in these other types of remote sensing. It's kind of like if you know there's more tools out there, why not build your capacity to hold the resources you need when these cases come up? So that's our goal for the future, is to have all the tools, all the expertise to respond to all these cases. Just an example, of course, not all families find that closure right away. Morgan Nick was 6 years old and missing 20 years ago. This was actually an Arkansas case, but we've been out there a couple of times. Back up to Dakota, all the further we go. And I just think it's a good example. Her mother, Colleen, who's continued not only for the search for Morgan, but to become an advocate for missing children. It's just an example of how important it is that when we go there, we want to be able to say, we've really done everything that we can. We brought every tool, every expert, and done everything really that you can to find her. So, the current program that's the mission of it. I think a lot of the logistics and specifics you already mentioned, so I can cover that more at the roundtables. What is it not? It's hopefully not. It shouldn't be an embarrassment. Things like the odor, contamination are not issues. We can explain that in great detail. There's scientific studies and experiments to back that out. I think maybe one best example is actually if you look at the facility in Knoxville. So this is a facility that was the first one like this. It's been there for about 30 years. And you'll notice it's in that wooded area between the parking lot and the hospital. So when you pull up there and you park to go to the hospital, you don't smell anything. You really wouldn't know what's behind the fence, except everyone there kind of knows and they're proud of it. But it's very private and secure. Fencing goes 7 feet, so it prohibits scavengers from coming down. The site that we're looking at here, building on the Sheriff's Office training facility, is 230 acres, surrounded by also the landfill and some other county property. So initially, when we met with the county and the Sheriff's Office and looked at it, the county suggested some additional sites adjacent to it. But what we really liked with the Sheriff's property was the security, the fact that he lives there, and of course, it's the collaboration, the partnership with the Sheriff's Office. This is a few pictures standing at the site, looking in each direction. So even though the site is already secure and private, we'll actually build that fencing and privacy fencing as well. So as far as you can see, this space is remote and it will actually be blocked off. I think I talked about a lot of the benefits. how we ultimately get our funding, research and donations, which allows us to buy these tools, test them, make sure they work, apply them in actual cases, and share those resources with not just the local sheriff's office, but all of our partners in law enforcement throughout the region. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Wescott. I'm an anthropologist from Texas State University. And so we are in San Marcos, Texas, which is about 26 miles outside of Austin, Texas. And so I've been the director of the facility there for since 2011. We actually originally started it in 2008. So a lot of what I want to be able to do is later on is be able to answer your questions, specific questions that you have about facilities. But just to give you a little bit of background too, we have a very similar mission. Part of what we do is associated with identification of border crossings that lie across the Texas border. But we also do lots of training for law enforcement. We do training for the National Guard in Texas. We do training training for the National Guard who have been deployed down on the border to look for missing individuals and individuals that die crossing the border. This is a perfect facility in the way that it allows them to get experience and know what they're looking for. We also do training for law enforcement. One of the probably the biggest advantages that we have is that we actually do a lot of training for cadets. It allows them to get exposure to human advantage before they actually go out into the field. It also, there again, allows them to see how rapidly bodies might decompose. And then we have done also training for our students as well. So a lot of things that Erin was talking about as far as the training we have is very similar things. And it's found to be very beneficial to Texas as a whole, I would say. We have Texas Rangers and everything else. We also have people from actually all over the world come to research and training as well. Right now we have researchers and they're from the Netherlands. We have police that are coming actually from the Netherlands that will be doing training in our facility as well. So we get people from all over the world to do training, including Florida. We actually train a lot of people, law enforcement from Florida. We do also do cadaver dog training, and a lot of those people are actually coming from Florida. I guess the other thing, talk a little bit about the community. And so San Marcos obviously is a lot smaller community than Tampa is, but we are also very close to San Antonio and Austin. And what we found was that when we first started the facility, there was a lot of concern about the location of the facility. But what I found is that over time, it's become a source of pride in the community. And like I said, it's a lot smaller community. And so the reason I can tell you this is because since it is a smaller community and I'm not about the community, I get stopped almost every day and people talk to me about the facility. And that's one thing too, and this is one thing I've always encouraged Erin to do, and that is we are very open with the community about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and everything else. And as a result, I think, like I said, I think that it's very much a source of pride. It also brings in revenue. We book hotels, we bring in people that eat at the restaurants. It's not a massive amount of people, but it is. what we found is that most of the concerns that they had turned out in the long run not to be concerns at all. Things like the smell, you're not going to get, it's really not going to be anything significant. You pretty much would have to walk up right on the body while it is in a very active state of decomposition to be able to smell it. So, we're looking at where the facility's at, we would never be able to do that. Scavengers are also not a problem. And we actually do research on the effects of scavenging, and we've never had rodents carried away more than 3 feet from the line. Yeah. But you can still have a lot of it be very natural as possible. That's the thing. So there are times, obviously, that when you want to have the effects of scavengers. And some fish is going to keep out some scavengers. What you're going to keep out mainly are what are just considered opportunistic scavengers. That makes sense? So you have some scavengers that are coming because specifically they feed on dead animals. So they're like the vultures. Some of the fish like